Was President Donald Trump just attacked by a time-traveling assassin? And then we take a look at the story of a little girl watching jump scare videos on YouTube. Little did she realize she was only moments away from watching a video so scary, it would shatter her soul. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. I hope you guys had an awesome weekend. I did, because I went and saw the #1 film in America, Shimone. That's not the name of the You're like, oh, I didn't see that in the box office results, Shimone. No, I went and saw the Michael Jackson biopic. I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, and I always have to follow that statement up with this statement. I think he's totally innocent. I think he was a weirdo, but I don't think he did anything to those kids. Now, that won't stop me from making hundreds of jokes over the years about it. I used to think he was guilty when that first trial happened. I followed the trial, and he beat it, and I go, well, maybe he is innocent. And then when he beat the second trial, I go, okay, guys, at a certain point, I mean, he has 2 wins under his belt on this, so that allowed me to enjoy the movie, I think, more than a lot of people. Obviously, if you thought he actually was a pedophile, you might have a hard time watching the movie. I will say this, it's funny, because the movie, it was supposed to be 3 hours long. They cut it down to 2 hours, because they couldn't include any of the trial stuff. They had to, I guess one of the boys, because there was a settlement, he ended up paying out one of the kids because he didn't want to go to a third trial. They just gave the kid a settlement, and one of the kids, there's 2 main accusers, and one of the parts of the settlement was, I can never appear in any movie about Michael Jackson. You can't have anyone playing me. You can't talk about me in any movie. Well, they didn't realize that when they shot a 3-hour-long Michael Jackson movie, and then they go, oh, we can't use this last hour. But apparently they are doing a sequel. It's the biggest movie. It's the highest-grossing musical biopic in history. I think it's actually might be, at this point, the highest-grossing biopic or the best opening weekend for a biopic in history. They're going to do a sequel, and they will talk about that stuff. This movie did kind of touch on it, no pun intended. They did kind of touch on it because they did have him acting weird around little boys. At one point, he was at a cancer ward, and he called this kid dying of cancer a doo-doo head. I was like, what? I mean, listen, I know you're not going to be able to include the child molesting stuff, but you also might not want to include the part where Michael Jackson called a kid dying of cancer a doo-doo head. That was quite odd. There were some weird choices that they made. But again, because originally the beginning of the movie was him getting accused, and then it's kind of a flashback. And the last act of the movie was him getting all these allegations. They took out that part, but there's like foreshadowing in it. The very first shot of the movie is Michael Jackson staring out a window, looking at all the boys playing street hockey, and then they're like, Michael, get over here, it's time to practice. He's a kid. But still, I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. I think the guy's innocent. I do think he's weird. To have multiple scenes of him staring at a picture of Peter Pan, I mean, probably 5 minutes of the runtime was him staring at pictures of Peter Pan across the movie as a kid and as an adult. It's weird. He's a weird guy, and they did definitely foreshadow stuff like that, but I really love Michael Jackson's music. I'll make jokes all day long about it, and I really enjoyed that movie, But someone who may or may not think Michael Jackson is innocent. That's a weird way to introduce someone running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Maria. Woohoo! Yeah! Wee! Ha ha! Yeah! Shimone! Hee hee! This is Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson's sound effect theme episode talking about the Trump assassin while I'm grabbing my crotch. Maria is, again, weird segue. Maria came all the way out to Oregon with her son Robert and her husband Robert to see me at the Oregon Ghost Conference. It was really cool that you guys traveled all that way. Hope you guys had a good time. And because you guys took such a journey, Maria, that is why you are going to be our captain or pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or the merch store, if you guys can't show up to the live events, it's totally fine. It really is. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, before we get started with the episode, over the weekend we just did our Dead Rabbit Radio movie weekend. The movie night and the movie morning. we watched a lot of good shorts. These are chosen randomly. I'm just kind of grabbing stuff off of YouTube, and I get suggestions from Discord members. Both the movie morning and the movie night, we watched some awesome ones. I'm going to go ahead and put the playlist in the show notes. We watched a ton of good ones. Everything from Mora, which was about a digital AI demon coming into the real world. I really liked that one. We watched, I think it was Pleasant Inn was the name of it. It was an animated one about a creature, a cryptid, an alien, whatever you want to call it, attacking a hotel in the middle of nowhere. That one was awesome. And then, I really didn't include this as one of my favorites, but I was telling Sabine about this one, and she thought I was making it up. She goes, there's no way that's a real short film you watched. It's called The Last Thing She Saw. And I'm not going to give any of it away. But I'll tell you this, when you watch it, you're like, yeah, if you try to explain this to someone, they would think you were making it up. Because it's so insane. It's crazy. But anyway, so thank you for everyone who came out to the movie night and the movie morning. I really enjoyed that. And we watched some real good ones this weekend. I hope to see you guys there next month. But all of the playlists of all the shorts we've watched, all the short films we've watched over the movie nights, movie weekends, all of that are going to be in the show notes so you can watch them at your own leisure as well. Okay, Maria, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to toss you the keys to you have a new vehicle here. For this special breaking news episode. I didn't plan on talking about any of this. I'm going to toss you the keys to the Carpenter Chronometer, our very own time travel device. Maria, go ahead. First time we've ever used it, so hopefully it works. Go ahead and climb into the cockpit of the Carpenter Chronometer. Everyone else, get in the back seat. As Maria fires this bad boy up, we're leaving behind Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Why don't you take us all the way to Washington, D.C. Flying through the timeline on the Carpenter Chronometer. This is a really interesting story, and it's developing so quickly that what I say now may not be relevant or even make sense tomorrow. And that could be for two reasons. One, that I'm doing this off the top of my head. I haven't written a lot of notes about this. But then let's also think, let's say I make a mistake. Did I? Or did someone change the timeline? Did I actually say the right thing according to the timeline we're in right now, but it got changed? I mean, that's a real lazy excuse, right? Whenever you make a mistake. Oh, no, it was right when I wrote it, Professor. The timeline's changed. Crazy story. It happened last night, so we're talking about April 25th. Actually, April 24th. I forget. Days keep moving forward. Wait, when did it happen? Well, time travel, baby. Who knows when it happened? What happened was the White House Correspondents' Dinner is this tradition where the President of the United States comes out and basically gets roasted and entertained. Trump was doing it this year. He's boycotted previous years. And this year, an assassin broke into the facility. It was actually a Hilton hotel. It wasn't like an underground facility, although that might change. We'll talk about that. It was at a Hilton hotel where they were hosting this event. A gunman named Cole Allen ran into the area. I'm being very vague because there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I'm pretty sure, I watched the video of it, it looked like he was doing the Naruto run. He had like his arms behind his back now, and he's running really fast like an elementary school kid. It's possible that's not what he did. It was kind of a grainy video footage, but that's what it looked like. I was like, is that guy Naruto running? And he had a shootout with Secret Service. He didn't actually get into the ballroom where everyone was seated. He didn't, get to shoot at Trump or any of Trump's advisors, cabinet members, whoever was there, Melania and all that stuff. But, gunshots were heard. It was mostly the Secret Service opening fire on him. Everyone survived. Cole Allen was arrested, apparently naked. It looked like he was naked in the photos, but maybe he just took his shirt. It's like Michael Jackson right before he started shooting, and he unbuttoned his shirt and goes, ah! Wind blowing his shirt back. I'm sure he tried to kill people with his clothes on, and at some point his clothes got ripped. Maybe he has pants on. I don't know. Time travel. You look at a video of him being arrested today, he's in a three-piece suit, and I go, I don't know. He didn't have any clothes when I checked. So, This is unfortunate because this is odd. This is the third assassination attempt on Trump, in the past couple of years. This is pretty insane as far as political assassinations go. I think it might be a record. But it's not unusual, right? Like, this is the third time we've seen this. You hear about this. You're like, well, someone's trying to kill Trump. And that honestly was kind of my reaction to it. I found out really late. I was just goofing off on the internet. I think I was getting ready to play Battlefield or something. And I was clicking on stuff and I go, what? Another assassination attempt. But what's interesting about this one, it's kind of weird that now we're getting bored of them. They're happening so often. But what was interesting about this one was immediately the conspiracy theories started. And there's two sets of conspiracy theories. One is, and this is the most popular one, it was all staged. And I know that conspiracy theory was dogging Donald Trump with the first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, that it was staged. But this one, right away people were saying it was staged. And what's interesting is the people who are saying it was staged. Alex Jones doesn't believe that anyone was in any real danger. Alex Jones has already staked his flag on this was a staged event. And he believes it's staged, so now there's going to be a push for the White House ballroom, which Donald Trump is already constructing. Saying, this is why we need a White House ballroom, so we don't have to have these parties in the hotel. And this is super interesting, right? Because I was reading about this. Cole Allen, he tweeted out his manifesto to his friends and family 10 minutes before the shooting started. And he said the security here is really bad. Like, I'm walking around with a bunch of guns and no one will stop me. He said what he figured out was that, and this is a horrible lapse in security for sure, to get to this event, you needed all of these ID cards, QR codes, you needed to be on the invite list, all of this stuff. But Cole got a hotel room at the Hilton the night before. So he was already inside the security wing. He was already inside the security ring. They were checking people like at the front of the Hilton, but if you were already had booked a room, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of insane that there was this big of a gap. He goes, I booked a room the night before. And then I was able to just take an elevator out and then Naruto run into the area. And I read another article, I forgot who wrote it, but another journalist was saying the same thing. They said that they were able to freely walk around the area, and they go, I didn't have an invite, and I didn't have a QR code, but I was able to provide proof that I had business inside the hotel, and so they just let me through. So it was pretty easy to gain access to this place. And again, then people go, that's another reason why they think it was staged, because the security was so bad. Alex Jones, who used to be a Trump ally until the Iran war started, he's turned really hard against Trump. He says, I think that this was staged so Trump could build his ballroom. Tucker Carlson is having Alex Jones on his show, and Tucker Carlson said, I think it was staged as well. And again, this was a very strong Trump ally until the Iran war started. They had a little bit of a falling out earlier, but the Iran war kind of cemented it. And Tucker Carlson said, I think it's staged so the third temple could be built and then Donald Trump could be declared the Messiah, aka the Antichrist. I mean, listen, imagine if your biggest supporters all of a sudden thought you were the Antichrist. And not only had it in the back of their head, they're like, that is weird that Donald Trump's making pictures of himself as Jesus, healing people. It is weird. And then not only having that thought in the back of your head, but then announcing it to your millions of listeners. And he goes, I think it's staged so the third temple could be built. That's all in the book of Revelation, if you're not familiar with that, for the Antichrist to appear. In Revelation, the third temple has to be built, and then the Antichrist will arrive. The Antichrist also has to get shot in the head and be dead for 3 days and then miraculously come back to life. But anyways, so that's one level of the conspiracy theory. But that level, I think people already have to kind of be listening to Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and, know about biblical prophecy, believe that he might be the Antichrist, for that to really catch on. There's a more mainstream conspiracy theory catching on, and that's the fact that somebody has a time machine and they knew this was going to happen. And you go, well, Jason, you don't need a time machine to know somebody's going to try to shoot Trump again. What has happened is very odd. Really, really odd. I used the cover art for this episode. You might just see like a weird image, a weird multicolor image. People say that, and I'll put this link in the show notes so you can watch the animation itself. That colored image, it takes a little bit of mental, kind of suspension, I think. I don't think it's exact, but the same way when you hear an EVP, and it's like, Grandma did it. Grandma did it. Grandma did it. And then someone goes, oh, the EVP saying Grandma did it. That's all. And then you listen to it, you go, oh yeah, Grandma did it. Grandma did it. You go, okay, now I can hear it. It says Grandma did it. This weird multicolored image does look, but you kind of got to go with a little bit of suspension of belief on this thing. But once you see it, then you can't unsee it. It looks very much like the Butler photo, the very iconic photo of after Trump, the assassination attempt on Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he has his fist raised, the American flag in the background, Secret Service surrounding him. There's this weird piece of digital art that's like a multicolored piece of digital art that looks very much like it if it was distorted in a particular way. This piece of art was created in the year 2022. So 2 years before the assassination attempt even happened. Okay, just a coincidence. What is interesting is there is a Twitter account that was registered by a guy going by the name Henry Martinez. Henry Martinez, his profile photo is Pepe holding a glass of champagne, Pepe the Frog. And then the second image, like the banner image, is that digital painting. This Twitter account was opened in 2023. It has one post from 2023. And that post says, Cole Allen. This post from 2023 has the name of the guy who tried shooting Trump the other night. 3 years before it even happened, Cole Allen. That's the only post that it has. Now, I've seen people go, and I've seen YouTube videos do this. I was reading one guy, he goes, well, I know what happened. That Twitter account probably had millions of names, and it deleted all the other tweets except for the one that was relevant, and it makes it look like a time traveler. That's real. I mean, like, listen, I'm not 100% on the time traveler theory with this thing, but you're really reaching if that's your other theory. I don't know I threw that out there because I guess that's possible. It could be something like that. I've seen it done with YouTube. Do YouTube videos. It'll make it look like, this YouTube video been up for 10 years and it references some event. Well, they just had 100 events and then you just find the one. Looks like they're predicting the future. Henry Martinez, we don't know if this is the same guy because this is all breaking news. There is a man named Henry Martinez who worked for NASA in 2014, the same time that Cole Allen was working. I don't think he was working directly with NASA. I think he was part of some program, the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, but they do work with NASA. I've seen reports that Cole Allen specifically worked on some program because he's a young man. Cole Allen's a young man. Up until this point, he was a school teacher and he was in college, obviously, before that to become a teacher. Not a school teacher, sorry. He did like tutoring services. They had some sort of academy, which like tutoring and one-on-one instruction, stuff like that. If you want to call yourself a teacher, that's fine. That would fit. But he wasn't teaching at like, say, an elementary school or a college or something like that. He did work for a program that was either, depending on the source, JPL or NASA related. And it's on his LinkedIn profile. And both him and a man named Henry Martinez were working in this same, space field, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratories, in the year 2014. Is this the same Henry Martinez who set up the Twitter account? We don't know yet. We may never know. But that's an odd coincidence. People said this artwork comes from a website called Time Machine. This is where the conspiracy theory, sometimes stuff filters in that's not true. I saw a report labeling Henry Martinez as one of the missing scientists that we've been covering. All of those missing scientists, and it's gone up since I did my episode. We have at least 2 more missing. Rob on Instagram sent me over one. Another one that had gone missing, and then Ampus Allen, longtime show supporter, he recently sent me an article. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I will read it though, and because we'll cover the missing scientist, the dead scientist, I think, again with these tips I'm getting in from Rob and Ampus Allen. Ampus Allen sent me over an article, I'll put it in the show notes. Basically, in Newsweek, China has a problem with their scientists mysteriously dying recently. So it may not even be a strictly American thing. You got to wonder really what's going on. We'll be looking more into that. But people were saying Henry Martinez was one of the missing scientists. And I go, no, I don't think so. I mean, it's not like I'm an expert on the subject or anything, but I go, that name is not familiar. He's not. However, a man named Henry Martinez did go missing in 2020, and he was a scientist, but he was found shortly after that. So some of the information being thrown into this oddly believable conspiracy theory is not true. Or as far as I know, I can't find anything saying that this website was called a time machine. But this idea, somebody has a time machine and they were able to create artwork of this unique photo before the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. You could really, this was my headcanon with this story. That weird digital art would have been what it may have looked like if you took a picture through the time machine itself. I mean, talk about making stuff up, right? I have nothing to back up on that. That was just kind of like, oh, what if that is how the art would appear? If someone was looking at that photo through a time machine, it would appear all distorted like that, but they would know the relevance of that moment, but they wouldn't be able to get a clear picture of it. But there's no proof of that either. Right? I start seeing that repeated everywhere. It was very interesting. All this stuff is just bap. I love conspiracy theory. I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe in certain conspiracies, and we've covered those on the show. I love the idea of conspiracy theories because it shows how the human mind works, and some of them are true. Certainly some of them are true, and a lot of times we don't know whether or not it's true until some time has passed or some more research. This is real breaking news stuff. By the time we do this episode, some of it could have been debunked. Some of it could be reaffirmed with more information coming in, and some of it, honestly, if it is time travel, could be changed. And that's, let's put on our conspiracy caps here for a second. I was thinking about this. We talk about alien disclosure, but I was also thinking, what if it's not aliens? This is not my own theory. A lot of people have this theory, but what if they're time travelers from the future? That the gray aliens are actually us, a super evolved form of humans. Or even, we did the episode, Are Gray Aliens Evolved Dolphins? But something from Earth, and something using time travel. They're not actually coming from another planet, they're time travelers. It's one thing for the government to say, listen, since the dawn of human time, but it's sped up a bit since we started using nuclear weapons, aliens have been visiting Earth. This is a civilization from outside of our solar system. They have technology beyond anything that we could even dream of coming up with. Maybe we can make peace with them. Maybe we can negotiate with them. Maybe they'll cure all of the ills our society feels. Maybe they'll attack us and we'll have to fight for our planet as united as one people. But they're aliens from another world. A lot of people wouldn't be able to deal with that. But most people, I think, would. You'd have a big amount of suicides. You'd have a lot of people running into the woods and kind of hiding from society for however long they think it's safe, whether or not the aliens are benevolent, just the fear of the outsider. But I think society would eventually get on board with it. The same way and I know it didn't work out great for the native populations, but when you had explorers come over from Europe into the New World, eventually everything worked. I mean, again, not for the natives, but what I'm saying is that, you would have had like the Hispanic culture, right? Which was a combination of Spanish, explorers, Spanish settlers, and then the indigenous people of Central South America and North America as well. But Hispanic, mostly Central South America. Well, I guess Mexico is considered North America. But you guys know what I'm saying. So eventually, like, it didn't cause the end of human society. Again, you're like, Jason, several empires ended. Okay, but you get what I'm saying. Eventually, things settled out. Yes, one group of people did conquer another group of people. Which is, I mean, that's the thing. When you talk about aliens, you're like, I've read this book before. It was in my history book. But imagine if they were time travelers. Imagine if the government said, listen, you guys want to know disclosure? We actually can't hide it anymore. People are seeing these crafts all the time. You can no longer say these photographs are fake because people can look outside and they see a saucer-shaped vehicle flying through their neighborhood. And the government says, listen, these are not aliens. These are people from 10,000 years in the future. And because they're from the future, they're not going to give us cures for anything. They need the timeline to be very specific to reach the future that they're in. So they're not going to stop our weapons unless we're about to have some horrible war. Maybe they'll shut down the nukes. And you go, well, that's a good thing. But the government goes, yeah, but those nukes would have preemptively stopped this war. They actually need Egypt to be wiped off the map. They need Egypt to be completely obliterated in this ground war. So there's nothing we can do to stop that. And you're like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, for their future to exist, these events have to happen. So they won't help us. In fact, the things that might actively hurt people, they need to happen. They need millions of people to die of AIDS in Africa. Because if they didn't need it, they would have fixed it. We're living in the timeline that they need to have happen, and they're not going to interfere unless something is about to change that timeline. So, someone, press reporter, I almost got in trouble for this, bringing this up last time, but I'm going to test my luck again. The reporter asked the president, so sir, are you saying that the Holocaust, are you saying that World War II and the rise of Hitler, that had to happen for the future? Like, we had to endure millions upon millions of people being killed all over Europe, and then Asia didn't do too well either. Millions of people killed over there. And you're saying that they could have stopped that, but they didn't because they needed it to happen, and the president would go, exactly. All of the worst atrocities in human history had to happen for their timeline to exist. And if we ever try to prevent something, but it needs to happen, they're just going to stop us from it. If we start to see a giant famine appear in the middle of the United States, Dust Bowl 2.0, if it doesn't happen, that's good. And that was part of the future timeline that these time travelers come from. But if it does happen and we try to stop it and we realize all of our attempts are in vain, it's because the time travelers are actually interfering with it. They're like kicking seeds out of your hand. You're a poor farmer. You're like, oh, maybe these weed seeds would work. And then a time traveler shows up, a gray alien's all kicking your hand. Try fertilizing that now. Because that is a theory that the aliens we see are actually humans from a far-flung future. And that would be mind-breaking. That would be so demoralizing to know that everything you do, everything that happens to you, is not only because of a reason, which is already kind of a religious argument, but the future has already been determined, however it can be changed. So if you all of a sudden develop an incurable disease, and in that timeline you have to die, it doesn't matter what you do to stop it, you will die at the age of 62, no matter what. And there's actually a way to cure it. People are working on a way to cure it, but then all the tests on that cure fail in the laboratory, and they go, sorry, we actually thought this would work. We don't know what happened. They don't realize that time travelers came back. There's some scientist. He's like, oh, I have the cure for cancer. Aliens all kicking him. That's their most advanced weapon, the foot. That would be... If we knew in the future someone had access to a time machine and everything that happened to us for a reason, and the reason is not because we must suffer on earth to receive rewards in heaven. type of religious answer. No. We have to suffer because the people in the future want their rewards, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. Zero. How do you negotiate the future? How do you say, please let my child have this disease cured? All of these children are dying of a disease. And the time traveler goes, well, yeah, I know, but see, in our future, all of those kids had to die. Why? Why? That's kind of petty. Oh, maybe the time traveler, maybe... Well, this was the other thing I was thinking. This is a conspiracy theory I made up the other day, and then we'll move on to the next story. But I thought, what if every unsolved murder was a time traveler? And I actually thought about that before this shooting thing. And that popped in my head, and I go, imagine if some Austrian art student in 1932 got his brains blown out. Dead on the street. A young man known as Adolf Hitler. It wouldn't even be, it'd be in their news. We would have never heard about it. Germany was probably going to do something like that anyways, right? They were already like a completely defeated country, and they were really pissed off over the whole thing, but you never would have known about actual Adolf Hitler. And I thought, what if, this kid, he's like 23 years old, he's out drinking with his friends, and then he gets an Uber. He goes, hey, I'm going to take an Uber. And then somewhere between the bar and his home, he gets shot and killed. Uber driver says, yeah, I was driving down the road. The guy was so drunk, I had to kick him out of my vehicle. It was a 3-mile walk through farmland, and then they found his brains blown out. What if that guy was going to be some megalomaniac, power-hungry dictator when he turned 45? And just like how we go, if I could time travel, I'd go back and kill these people and prevent this type of thing. Someone from the future came back and killed him. It would track for... Think about when someone asks you, would you go back and kill Hitler? Would you take a time machine and go back and kill Hitler if you could? That's a hypothetical question for us. If you have a time machine, it's not hypothetical at all. You go, hey, that's a great idea. Hey, let's fire up the time machine and let's go hunting. Click. You'd use period-accurate weapons. You go back in time and you go, listen, this guy's going to be one of the worst leaders in human history. So we'll go back in time and we'll shoot him when he's just a kid. He's 23 years old. Blow his brains out all over an Idaho highway, middle of the night. And you would never be able to catch the person. The person wasn't even born yet. The assassin wasn't even born yet. I don't know. You're like, oh, that's kind of creepy. See, that's the thing. You can't not fight someone with a time machine. You can't negotiate a more equitable timeline. You can't say, okay, well, let's stop these horrible catastrophes happening now. You have the technology. You have a time machine. You can actually fix everything. You can make it so my kid doesn't get sick in the first place. You can go back in time and make it so AIDS doesn't exist. And they go, well, we could, but we're not going to because we needed all of that stuff to happen, good and bad, for us to have the future that we have. Which is quite nice, very utopian. It did involve a lot of dead kids, but look at how nice our buildings are. If alien sightings are time travelers, they cannot disclose that information to the general public. Because one, you're admitting time travel is real, which would be a really big brain thing for people to even understand, like, wait, time isn't linear? And they're like, no, time is like nothing. It's so complicated. There's no analogy for it. Not only is there a time machine, but we're at the mercy of those with it. And they're humans. They're from Earth. But they'll do anything and have done anything to keep their timeline safe. And that makes us we're not even participants in that. There's nothing we can do. Again, if a ship flies down and kidnaps your family, there's nothing you can do. It's a time machine. What do you want us to do? Anything we do to just fix the timeline so we won't be able to stop it. Your family is captured. The crazy stuff. I don't know if that's true. People have often said alien sightings, UFO sightings could be time machines. It's possible, surely. But that would be a big reason why the government could just never disclose that information. If aliens showed up, if you believe there was more intelligent life in the universe than us and they had been visiting Earth, that would kind of put humanity on the back foot. We would really have to rethink our place in the universe. But if you thought that we weren't even at that level, we were just like commas on a page that could be removed and added at will, and there's nothing you could do to stop it. It's just in the history of the world, we're really nothing. If your life is good, that's because the time travelers need it to be good. If your life is bad, that's because the time travelers need it to be bad. There's nothing you can do to change that. And the person with a good life, their life could go bad tomorrow because the timeline demands it. Totally at the mercy of these time travelers. You can fight aliens, but you cannot fight an enemy that controls time itself. Maria, unfortunately, we don't have time to tell the story about... What was the second story? Oh, yeah, the jump scare. The jump scare story. We don't have time to do that. We'll have to save that for another episode, but I don't want to leave anyone hanging. I don't want to just end the episode there. I have a duo of terrifying tales about cursed items. Cursed items. What would you do if you were in this situation? Maria, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the world. It sounds like I just slapped this together. I didn't. I actually do have notes prepared on these two stories, but I didn't plan to do them today or even together. Maria, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys to the world-famous Carpenter Copter. We're waving goodbye to Washington, D.C. Why don't you go ahead and fly us all the way out to the Museum of the Macabre? We're walking around this museum. I always thought it'd be cool to have an oddities store. To be one of those guys in town. Hey, I sell incense and stuff, candles, but for the real weirdos, I have like a jar of like a hand in it, like a pickled hand, and maybe some fetuses. Those are just sitting and they're just laying on the table all wet. You know what I mean? Like they're not in jars. I could only afford one jar and I really needed to protect that hand. You know what I mean? Like on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Giles had that magic shop. I mean, there was real magic in that show, vampires and stuff like that. Obviously, I would like to be that. I'd like to be Giles. That's the character I always most identified with. Just a bunch of weird stuff, right? Just a bunch of weird stuff. You're walking through the store, and it's just like gross stuff in jars. It's just, that was my ham sandwich. I didn't finish eating, and I figured, this would look disgusting in a jar full of pickle juice. You know what I mean? Like a creepy store. And that's why we're here. This is actually my Museum of the Macabre. Look at all these horrible things around you. There's this Cyclops. He's my employee. He's like, hey guys, what's up? My name's Bert. Yeah, he's not odd. He's actually super nice. He just works here though. Like, you know what I mean? They'll like have all this crazy stuff. And I sell candles and incense. That's how I pay the bills. I'm not selling my hand or my fetus collection. And we're walking through my little oddity shop, and I say, look at this stuff. Look at this stuff. I don't normally show this to regular customers. I don't show this to the normies. I show it to freaks like you. I know why you're here. I saw you put that fetus in your pocket. I know you're taking that home. Look at this. And I pull out a gun. You're like, oh, Jason, that's actually my worst fear, that I'm going to meet up with you and you're going to pull a gun on me. I have nightmares about that. No, I'm not aiming it at you. I'm just pulling it out and putting it on the table. Look at this gun. That's a cursed gun. It's loaded too. Be careful with that thing. And then I pull out a DVD of the movie Twister, starring Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton. He was in that, right? He was in that. I never saw Twister, honestly. But in here I have a DVD of it. I put him out and you're like, what? Well, that's kind of a weird de-escalation. And I go, you would think so. But look, these are both cursed items. Both of these items are cursed. Now, pick wisely. You have to take one of these home with you. You got to take one of these home with you. And you go, well, the smart play, obviously, to pick the DVD of the movie Twister. Because that is probably the least cursed of the two items. And I'm just kind of chuckling in the corner. Oh, Twister, you say? I do have to interrupt this. Let's go back to the Michael Jackson movie. This scene has been stuck in my head ever since I saw it. There's a scene where they're all adults or young men. They're all like in their early 20s. Michael Jackson and his brothers, the Jackson 5. And I get it, the scene's supposed to show how Michael Jackson is very lonely. He doesn't really fit in anywhere. But again, it's just the worst foreshadowing, because we know what he's going to be accused of. There's a scene where Michael Jackson goes to a toy store, right? So right there, you're obviously like, oh, this can get kind of creepy. But Michael Jackson goes to the toy store with his bodyguard, And he goes to this toy store throughout the movie. And he's always buying like shopping carts full of stuff. And he goes back home. They're all living together. The Jackson 5, they're all living together. And his brothers are playing basketball. And they all have their shirts off. And they're all these muscular young men. And they're playing basketball. And they're like, yo, Tito, I heard you had a hot date tonight. And Tito's like, yeah, but you know what? Jermaine's girl, have you seen her? Woohoo, that girl's fine. And the brothers are kind of busting each other's balls about hot girls and like having a bad date and not knowing what to do. You know, just like how brothers talk, right? Well, then Michael Jackson shows up. Which, I mean, listen, any story that has that sentence in it, you know it's going to be weird. So Michael Jackson shows up. He comes back home and he's like, hey guys, hey brothers, hey, guess what? I bought Twister. And he holds up, he has the board game Twister, not the DVD, which would have been even more puzzling because the movie hadn't come out yet. He's a time traveler, just like the assassin. Michael Jackson goes, hey guys, look, I got Twister. Who wants to come up to my room and play Twister? And his brothers are like, Michael, Michael, that game is for kids. Like, we're all growing up, we're dating beautiful women. And Michael goes, you guys don't know how to have any fun. I mean, they're all sleeping with women. That's almost the most fun a young man can have, is just sleeping with random women. Michael Jackson goes, you guys don't know how to have fun anymore. And he kind of shakes his head. And then it cuts to him and his pet monkey, Bubbles, who's CGI. It's a CGI monkey playing Twister. And it's creepy. The monkey's basically a little kid. It's a CGI furry kid playing Twister with Michael Jackson in his bedroom because his brothers don't know how to have fun anymore. They don't want to roll around with Michael. I mean, it's like I'm watching the movie and go, I get what the intent of the scene was. It was to show that he hadn't grown up and he was completely alienated, even from his closest compatriots, his own family. But it comes off as super creepy. It comes off as really, really creepy. They could have had them do any conversation. They could have been talking about rehearsal or something. And he goes, you guys don't know how to have fun anymore. But no, the fact that they were talking about having sex with women and he's all, you guys stink. That's dumb. That's horrible. Why are you guys doing that? Anyways, the movie is really good. But I'm telling you, they put some questionable scenes in it. We're not talking about Michael Jackson anymore. We're talking about this cursed items. We have 2 cursed items sitting on we have 3. You see Michael Jackson's glove. I was like, oh, this is part of my personal collection. I put it on. Shimone. I'm grabbing my crotch in the oddities shop. You pick one. Pick one you gotta pick. So anyways, let's take a look at these 2 stories. I found these when I was researching my speech that Maria and Robert and the Mule Crew and a bunch of other people came out to watch about haunted clothing. These didn't make the cut because they are not clothing, but they're just odd, cursed stories I found. The first one is the gun. You tell me which one's worse. So, apparently there's this gun shop. We'll call the guy who posted this story up, he's an employee of the gun shop. We'll call him Teddy. Teddy said, I worked at this gun shop back in the 90s. And, we're selling guns all the time. That's kind of what we do. We also will buy used guns. A lot of gun stores will do that, and then they'll clean and maintain them, and that way someone who can't afford a new gun can still get a firearm. It makes sense, right? Because they can last a long time if they're taken care of well. If they're well taken care of. So anyways, they get this gun in. We don't know exactly what type of gun it is, but in my mind, I picture it as a revolver. Let's just say it's a .38 revolver. And this guy comes in and he's looking at the different guns and he goes, hey, I'm going to buy that gun right over there. And Teddy goes, the .38? Yeah, here, let me hold it, the customer says, and he kind of holds it. You make sure it has a good weight. Make sure it fits into your hand just right, because each gun in each hand is different. I've never bought a gun, but I've used several, and you'd be surprised how different they can feel. It's like a bowling ball, except bowling balls have the weight written on them. But every time you pick up a gun, especially if it's a gun you're unfamiliar with, it is interesting how it fits in your hand. So, not even considering stuff like recoil or how fast you can reload it or anything like that, just the feel of it. The customer goes, hey, can I get this .38 revolver? And Teddy goes, yeah, sure. He sells it to the dude. Well, after a period of time, we don't know exactly how long this took, which will become important in a moment, but after a period of time, not super long, a man comes into the gun shop and says, hey, you guys buy used guns, right? And Teddy goes, yeah, we buy used guns. What do you want? What are you bringing in? And he goes, oh, well, I have this 38 revolver. And all the guns have serial numbers on it. Teddy realized that was the gun that they had sold not too long ago. And the customer says, the guy who bought it was one of my family members. He killed himself with this. And we don't want it in the house. We don't want it anywhere around. So can we just sell it to you and get some money for it? Teddy goes, yeah, sure. It's horrible. I'm so sorry that happened. Yeah, Customer sells it, gets his money, and leaves. The gun is then put back for sale as a used gun. It's at a discounted price. And eventually another customer comes in and says, hey, I'm looking for a gun. Oh, look at that. Yeah, it's 38 special. That's you got a deal on that? Teddy goes, yeah, it's a used gun, so it doesn't say what it was used in, right? You don't know if it was for shooting turkeys or for making a movie or whatever. He goes, yeah, this gun was used at least once. Don't mean to be insensitive, but Teddy goes, yeah, the gun was used. And the customer goes, okay, I'll pick it up. It sounds like a good price. So the customer buys the gun and leaves. A month later, that gun comes back into the shop. And Teddy and his boss are both starting to go, this is the same gun, right? They can compare the serial number. The 38 comes back into the shop. And Teddy looks at it and goes, hey, we sold this gun a month ago. The customer goes, yeah, it's we don't want it in the house anymore. One of my relatives used it to kill himself. So we don't know how long it took between the purchase of the first gun and the first suicide. But now that it was purchased, a month after it was purchased, the dude who bought it used it to kill himself. And Teddy is like, oh, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Yeah, we'll buy it from you. And at this point, him and his boss are like, firearms are used in a lot of suicides. What is it like? There's 30,000 gun deaths in America every year, and 20,000 of those are suicides. When they talk about gun deaths in statistics in the United States, they make it sound like 30,000 people are just gunned down in the streets. The vast majority of gun deaths in America are suicides. So it's not rare that someone buys a gun and kills himself with it. Unfortunately, it's not rare. The same gun being used in 2 suicides, like we say on the show, the first time it's an event, the second time it's a coincidence. It still doesn't mean anything. So they buy the gun back and they put it back on the shelf for sale. And eventually a guy comes in and goes, hey, look that's a pretty good price on that 38 revolver. Yeah, it's a used gun. The dude goes, I'll buy it. That's actually perfect. That's exactly what I needed, and it's a good price. So the customer buys the revolver and leaves. A while later, again, we don't have a timeline for this. I don't imagine it's any more than a year, 6 months probably. Everything seemed to be happening pretty quickly. Teddy's working at the gun shop. His boss is there. The store owner, the boss is the store owner. They're at the gun shop. And a guy walks in. He comes in with the 38 revolver. He goes, hey, I want to sell this. And they go, well, didn't we just sell it to you not too long ago? He goes, yeah, you did. But let me tell you a bit of a story. I bought this gun from you guys, and shortly after I bought it, someone stole it from me. So my name was linked to this serial number on the gun. I'm super worried something's going to happen. It's going to be traced back to me. I'm worried that something I bought could be used in a harmful way. I'm also kind of pissed that I spent money on something and a thief took it from me. I reported the gun stolen, and then eventually the police... Actually, this would have been more than a couple months, because looking at the chain of evidence here. He said what happened was my gun got stolen, and I couldn't figure out who stole it. Then, in another state, this gun was found at a murder scene, and the police took it into evidence. And when everything was done, they returned the gun to me. Once the investigation was over, they returned the gun to me. Which could take years. There's 2 things that could be going on here. One is that it would take years for that to happen if his gun was the murder weapon. They have to keep the gun for every appeal. Until all appeals are exhausted, they have to keep that gun. However, it actually, now that I think about it, it was found at the murder scene. It doesn't necessarily mean that the gun was used in the murder. The victim may have been carrying it, which would actually make more sense. If the gun was just a piece of evidence laying on the ground, but it wasn't used in the actual crime, you could get that back fairly quickly. But again, it would be a process of like a year, I'd say minimum. But whatever the case, whatever the timeline, whether this was a couple months, which I probably lowballed it at first, a year or more, here's the owner and Teddy looking at this .38 revolver. They've sold it 3 times now. Twice it was linked to a suicide, and now it's been linked to a murder, at least in the vicinity of a murder, if not the murder weapon, but probably not. They would have kept it for a long time if that was the case. Teddy and the owner, they do buy the gun back. They do allow him to sell that used gun to them, but they did not put it back on their shelf. Instead, they took a torch and melted it into scrap. It's interesting because sometimes when I type my notes up for this, I don't really see the big picture. I can kind of lay this out now. This most likely wasn't the murder weapon. This is really creepy. This most likely wasn't the murder weapon. It was found at a murder scene. This would be my bet, and this is a conspiracy cat moment. The person who got shot was carrying this gun. The person who was murdered was carrying this gun. So it's not a murder weapon, so you can get it back quicker during an investigation. So in the end of the day, the person who possessed it was still killed. It wasn't used to kill someone. This is just my guess, right? Because he got it back relatively quickly. He didn't say 10 years later, we got it back. Which is even creepier, right? It's not that the gun was used in a murder. It was whoever owns this gun is going to die violently. A cursed weapon. A cursed firearm. It's interesting, though, because you would go, well, why? Because when they first received the gun, it wasn't used. Teddy's gun shop was selling it new. Did it come cursed out of the factory? Possibly. There is the option, too, that it was a normal gun until the first suicide. And all that psychic energy, all that sadness, all that rage, all of that despair was absorbed into the gun. So it may have been a completely normal gun until it was used in the first suicide. And then at that point, it became cursed. At that point, more people were dying because of it. Simply owning it was a death sentence. So they melted it down. Really interesting story. It's something that I wonder if you... there's a podcast I used to listen to all the time called Sofa King Podcast, and they made it this really interesting analogy. They said, or example, metaphor. They go, if I had 2 steak knives sitting on a table, they're from the same set. They're manufactured at the same time by the same company. 2 steak knives sitting on a table. But one of those steak knives, you know for sure, was used to kill a man. The one on the left was actually used in a murder. But other than that, it's indistinguishable from the one on the right, which was only used for cutting steak, cutting stuff up to eat. Is the murder knife different? And it's an interesting question, right? At first you want to go, well, yeah, because it was used to kill somebody. But did something change in the structure or even like the energy of the knife? Has something changed because it was used to kill a man? Or is it still just the steak knife that happened to be used to murder somebody? Does something change about that knife? It's a really interesting hypothetical question. There's no answer to it. I think it comes down to what you would think. I would say yes. The knife that was used to kill someone, there is something different about that knife now. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was, and if I ran it under a microscope, it would look the same as the knife next to it. But that knife would be different. Now imagine if you didn't know that either knife was used to stab someone, to kill someone, but one of them was. And you picked it up, would you be able to tell? Would it feel heavier? Would it feel darker? And that'd be the same thing with this gun. They knew that the gun was used in 2 previous suicides. They weren't telling the customers that. But when it was found at the scene of a murder, and again, because they got it back relatively quickly, again, I don't think, because appeals can go 10, 20 years, and I doubt Teddy would still even be working at the gun shop at that point. He says this happened in the late 90s, so all of this stuff would have happened over about a 5-year period, at most. 1995 to 2000 at most. So anyway, I know sometimes I get, why are you so hung up on the time? I do that from time to time. I get it. But let's take a look at this DVD. You're like, the gun one's horrible. People are killing themselves and dying. Yeah, you say that now, but wait till I tell you about this cursed Twister movie. It's going to sound lame. And you're going to say there's no comparison at all, but just follow me through on this. We meet this guy. I pick up the DVD and I go, this used to belong to a dude. He didn't give his real name. Let's go ahead and call him Bruce. What was the last guy's name? Teddy? Let's call this guy, no, let's call him Patrick, actually, because that's the name I wrote down in my notes. Patrick said that, for some reason, I don't even understand this first part, he really liked the movie Twister. Now, I've never watched it, but everything I've seen from it looked really dumb. And I've seen all the Transformer movies, just so we're clear. Right? Right? So, I mean, that allows me to go, but that movie looks stupid. I've seen maybe a total of 5 to 10 minutes from that movie over the years. Nothing about it appeals to me. Rogue, weather, chasers, they're all just in it for the money, but we're in it for the science. Cows flying around. I did see the sequel, actually. I did see the sequel, Twisters, with Glenn Powell, because I really like Glenn Powell. And that was good, actually. I enjoyed Twisters. And if one day I happen to be locked in a room and the only movie available is Twister, I'll watch it. But I'll really probably do anything else other than watch it. It's just dumb. I don't like the color gray. And the cover of the box is gray. Every scene I've seen from the movie is gray because the sky's all gray. It just looks dumb. But anyways, Twister. This guy liked that movie. That's the most paranormal part of the story for me. He goes, but here's the thing. Every time I sat down to watch Twister, or more specifically, every time I got this DVD and put it in to watch Twister, a huge storm broke out in his area. Rain coming down, wind blowing. Patrick looks out his window and he sees people like running for cover. They're like, oh, it's so rainy, it's so rainy. And he goes, well, that's weird. It was totally normal out there just a minute ago. And he finishes watching the movie. It's not so rainy he can't watch Twister. Well, then, after that, he's, not immediately after that, he's gooning to Twister. He's like, the only thing that gets me hot is tornadoes. I've fried my brain on normal porn. This is the only thing I can watch now. At some point, he watches the movie again, which is so funny because that's what I find so incredulous about this story. Someone really loves this movie. He watches this multiple times. But he starts to pick up on a pattern. Every time he puts in the DVD Twister, a huge storm breaks out in his area. And he goes, it's always out of the blue. Literally, the sky is blue, the weather report is everything is going to be fine. I put in my DVD copy of Twister and a huge storm hits. He goes, in fact, twice our area, while I was watching Twister, we actually got a tornado warning. Twice an actual tornado didn't show up. But he goes, twice in my area, we got a tornado warning. And he goes, I'm telling you, I would check the weather and it would say 20% chance of rain that day. He decides to watch Twister and a huge rainstorm breaks out. Comes out of nowhere. So he goes, I am going to stop watching this DVD of Twister. So he gets rid of it. But he can't not watch this movie. For some weird reason, he really loves Twister. Maybe he was a tornado in a past life. He's like, Mama! He's watching. I really can't think of any other reason why someone would watch Twister over and over again. It looks boring. Anyways, so, I mean, whatever. I'm like, is this guy a freak? Is this story made up? No one would watch Twister more than once. He can't stop watching Twister. He really likes the movie Twister, so what does he do? He goes out and buys another DVD of Twister, and he goes, well, yeah, I mean, that old one obviously was cursed. Something happened to it. Every time I put it in, there was a huge storm. Clearly, if I go to Best Buy and buy another copy of Twister, they have, security's like, sir, you're in here every day buying Twister. You spend way too much time in the Twister aisle. We've seen what you do with these DVDs, you pervert. He goes, he buys another copy, a DVD of Twister. He takes it home, he puts it in. Huge rainstorm breaks out in his town. And he goes, it happened a couple more times. I'm watching Twister and a storm comes out of nowhere and just hammers the area. So eventually I just stopped watching Twister on DVD. He gets the laser disc. He's like, oh, look at this. This will be awesome. Causes a black hole to appear. No, he goes, I stopped watching Twister on DVD. However, he did note, this is really interesting. Jason, the gun killed multiple people. I thought someone was going to get sucked up into a tornado or a cow was going to start flying around every time he played Twister on DVD. Are you telling me that's it? That big storm breaks out? Listen, that might not sound as important as people shooting themselves in the head, but I'll tell you this. If you were a farmer... okay, the gun one was more shocking. I was going to say, if you're a farmer, your crops are getting overwatered. You're like, what's going on? You're right. Multiple suicides and a homicide is, in a way, in a very small way, more important than a giant storm. But I would argue that 3 people dying versus environmental catastrophe. Okay, you don't believe in climate change? You're judging me? You're judging me? I'm trying to be good for the environment. No more Twister. We should ban it everywhere. But no, that's the funny thing. He goes, I would watch Twister on cable. Sometimes, on TBS, they'd be showing Twister, or HBO or something like that. They'd be showing Twister. Nothing would happen. No rainstorm out of nowhere. No tornado warning. And that was always the thing. It wasn't that it was overcast. He put it in and a storm came. He goes, the weather was always good until I started watching Twister. Until I put the DVD in. He goes, I could watch it on TV and it never happened. Jason, I get it. You're going for a cursed item story, but maybe it was a slight inconvenience. The roads are a little more slick. What would you rather do? Okay, I'm not going to go there. I was going to say, what would you rather do? Commit suicide or have a tornado chase you? I would say this. The tornado's chasing you. You're like, oh, look at this gun flew into my hand. It's whirling around in the tornado. It comes right into my palm. Yes, the gun thing is more shocking. Sure, I agree with you on that one. However, I do think the Twister one is more odd. I'll say that. Guns are unfortunately used in suicides all the time. That happens without curses. And it may happen, you may have a gun that that doesn't get sold back to the gun store, that the family decides to keep it. And then, because a lot of times suicide is a generational curse. It's a family illness that you will usually be passed down from generation to generation. Unfortunately, right? It's so tragic. Watching Twister on DVD and it causing a storm out of nowhere, that's more weird. That's weirder. It's not, well, I mean, like, it's not better. It is better than the gun thing. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, it's spookier. Like, no, it's not, Jason. Just admit. Just because I didn't plan on doing these two stories at the same time. It's supposed to be separated. There's just cursed item stories. The Twister one would be way cooler if I didn't talk about a cursed gun before it. Maybe I should have reversed those. But anyways, those are 2 twisted tales. You're like, okay, one twisted tale of a firearm that wanted humans to die. And then the other one, an odd story that defies the imagination, that breaks the psychic wall we all have put up to protect ourselves. Somewhere out there, there's a man who likes to watch Twister more than once. That's Cthulhu-level horror. That is the true despair code. Cursed items, I do find them absolutely terrifying. Really, really creepy stuff. Whether it's a gun or movie, you never know if you'll be safe. Anything you buy could be cursed. Even a new item. Right? He didn't buy a used copy of Twister. It was brand new. He stayed in line. He was there for the midnight release of the Twister release party. And the gun was brand new as well. So it doesn't even really matter if you buy it at a secondhand shop. The terror can still follow you home. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be your email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm so glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys. I think we're good. I think that actually will be a little long.